Here's the deal. In May, I turned 50. 50 is one of those numbers, one of those big numbers, those big round numbers. It's half of 100, for goodness sake. And 50 might be a sign that I should start slowing down, that I should start doing less, I should start, acting my age. Something funny happened on the way. I think I've decided to kind of not do that. Instead of letting my creaky knees dictate or my sore shoulders, I seem to be hauling more firewood and cutting down more trees and doing more stuff. And I seem to still be playing this video game and even making a podcast. Well, a couple weeks ago, I had an idea for the July episode, and let's be honest, my wife being away this weekend kind of enabled my idea. And here's the idea. Why not stay up all night and play a video game and record a podcast? Why not start as the sun goes down and try and get back to the sunrise as if I'm not 50 years old, as if I don't have things to do tomorrow? Why not? With my voice of reason away for the weekend, there's no one to stop me. So, for the July episode of Solo Q, we're going to go all night. We're going to see how this goes. Stick around to see how this ends up. You have entered the Solo Queue, a monthly podcast about adventuring alone in the world of Warcraft. Thanks for joining me. My name is Dave Gagne. Welcome to Solo Q episode 11. It is Saturday night. It is July 20th, 2024. When you hear this, it should be hopefully just shy of Tuesday's extended maintenance as the War Within pre-patch comes out, as patch 11.0 gets put into play. We are on the cusp of massive changes in World of Warcraft. Everything changes. And so what better way to celebrate that? What better way to celebrate the closing days and hours of Dragonflight than to just go all night? All night here at the Solo Q headquarters. We've got WoW queued up. We've got recording things going on. We've got an outline for the episode hour by hour tonight. The goal is to start now here at 10 o'clock in the PM on the eastern seaboard of the US. A little less wherever you are, a little more wherever you are. I don't know. Your time zone may differ. And we're going to get to the sunrise. We're going to go all night. We're going to see if I can channel my youth and keep my head off the keyboard and get to the sunrise and wrap the episode up then. We've got a plan. We're going to start at 9, but it is now 10. A little later than we anticipated, but that's okay. We have things planned for every hour. At 11 o'clock, we'll get to the news. At 12 o'clock, we'll review some Dragonflight topics. Around 1 o'clock, the War Within. We'll talk about a few things coming in the War Within. At 2 o'clock, delve testing and a little discussion about delves, a big feature coming in 11.0. At 3 o'clock, an update on WoW Remix, Mr. Pandaria, why you should be playing that. At 4 o'clock, our Raid of the Month is coming up, second month in a row. And at 5 o'clock as the sun is coming up. Around here, it's at 5:18. I'll give you my final thoughts on Dragonflight, wrap things up for the episode, and tell you why I'm tell you why I am very excited about this game over the past few months, 6 months, and going forward. All that and more coming as we just mainline and see how things go. Why am I doing this? Well, that is a fair question. Like I said in the intro, I don't know, something about turning 50 and you feel old and parts feel old, and then part of you says, you know what? No, we're not going to do this that way. We're not just going to go easily into the night. We are going to fight. Why not? So that's what this episode is going to be. Fighting back. Before I move forward, I should give a quick, big thank you to Jin of Live Laugh Lore and of Jin's Joint for meeting up with me a couple weeks ago. I finally got that episode out to you, I believe, last week. So I loved our interview. It was a fantastic conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Let me know what you think. Thanks to Jin for sharing all his insights into the game and his experience over the years. Everyone who's played a lot longer than me, I learn a lot whenever I talk to them. So, it's only been 9 years for me, coming up on 10 this year, but there's a lot to learn. There's a lot I missed. So, fantastic conversation. I look forward to more interviews coming. You might even be able to guess who the next interview might be. I'll let you think about that while I line that up. But there'll be more coming, probably maybe before the end of the summer. I don't know. My world starts to get a little busy come August, and then it stops probably December. So we'll see what we can do. But tonight we have a lot to do, a lot to cover. I have no idea how long this is going to take, but I will be back at the top of the hour with July's WoW news. This is your 11 o'clock Azerothian solo Queuian news. First item up on my list is going back a little bit, the Midsummer Fire Festival. I kind of got into this. I mentioned in the past, sometime in the past few months, I don't normally get into the holidays. I figure there's so much to do in the game. Why would I go and do a thing that just shows up every year and doesn't give me much? But I don't know. Lunar Fest recently, I took the opportunity to, maybe it's the druid in me, but to visit all of the elders and honor them. And Midsummer Fire Festival had the additional benefit of experience, and I used this as an opportunity to level a few characters to 70 who had been kind of languishing in Dragonflight, another to 60, and I didn't know what I was going to do at that point, but I will tell you a little later in the show what I'm going to do about that level 60. Did a lot of flying around, a lot of throwing torches, a lot of dousing bonfires and lighting bonfires and beating up the Ahun boss, the holiday boss. And so, I got some good stuff out of this. I played that pretty hard. So I'm slowly starting to come around on holidays. So I guess, I don't know, maybe it's all that part of turning 50 stuff, but maybe we can change. So the other thing I want to mention is the holiday drop rate restrictions. I'm happy to report that the new holiday rare drop restrictions and the bad luck protection system works perfectly fine. I got the Fire Festival Drake armor on my very first attempt. Sorry, Jason from the Starting Zone. I know you didn't get off the schneid on that, but here's the deal. Here's the trick. I figured out the trick to the new system. you have to not care about the reward. I wasn't even feigning disinterest in the Drake armor. I remember seeing it and thinking, okay, yeah, I'm enjoying Firefest, but I'm not putting flowers around the neck of my Drake. Why would I do that? That's something I will never wear. And then I had it. Just like that. Very easy. You just have to not care about the reward. Not even fake it. You can't fake it. I mean, I'm happy to collect, from a collect them all mentality. I'm happy I got it, but that was a little bit wasted on me, So sorry to all of you who did not end up getting that drop. If you were gunning for it and you only had one chance per day, 14 chances. I know the discussion is, will your bad luck protection pick up at essentially level 15 next time the Firefest rolls around? I gotta think so. I don't think that's gonna reset, but I don't know for sure. But that seems implied in the whole thing. So we will see. I am sure that I will get shoved back to the back of the line when we get to Brewfest, and I'm actually interested when I go hard on all the Brewfest stuff for kind of the first time. I'm looking forward to that. So I'm sure my feigning, my actual disinterest will change, and a feigned disinterest will not work. So we'll see. All right, on to upcoming news. So, really, what else is there? We are on the precipice of a sea change in World of Warcraft. The pre-patch for The War Within, the 10th expansion, launches this Tuesday, July 23rd. And hopefully, like I said, you are getting this episode in time to listen to, during what promises to be a long maintenance. There's no doubt. I think they've got, let me think off the top of my head, 8 hours scheduled, and somehow I feel like it's going to be longer. Who knows? Even when the servers come up, you need to be patient. You need to remember two things. First, pre-patch event for 11.0 is called the Radiant Echoes. I have not tested the event. I have heard some people describe it. It sounds like it's going to be a very familiar style of pre-expansion, mass public event of, hey, go to a zone, do a bunch of things for a period of time, and then all that's going to pick up and shift to another zone, and you can do it another time. That event does not launch on Tuesday. So there is no pressing reason for you to log into the game immediately. You're not missing out on the event if maintenance is extended or servers go cloud strike on you and you attempt to connect. Do not panic. The second reason to have patience is this, and this is another reminder. Even once Blizzard crosses its T's and dots its I's and you end up getting online, remember what is going to happen when you first log in. Tuesday, July 23rd or 24th in Europe, or possibly all of us if it goes all haywire. But on that day, the pre-patch launch brings the launch of warbands. For the first time, all of your characters on your Battle.net account will be connected regardless of race, class, faction, or server. The only restriction that remains is region. And so when you first log in, the hamster wheels at Blizzard will begin stitching all of your characters together. Not stitched like an abomination, but just connecting your characters, combining achievements and the progress on those achievements, connecting currencies, sharing transmog appearances, and creating this one overarching entity known as your warband. And this is no easy task, as you might imagine. Blizzard announced that it could take 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how complex your account and your character roster are. I anticipate that my 61 characters, possibly 62 before this night is over, who knows, that could take a fair amount of time. So I really have to take my own advice about being patient. I'm not always good at that. The good news here is that You do not have to log into every single character to add them to the warband. That is very nice. That's kind of the reason behind the wait times, that Blizzard is going to go and connect all of that data. But if you get antsy, remember, reason number one, pre-patch event does not begin until July 30th, the next week. So no one is getting ahead of you. Lastly, remember that every character is in your warband, not just the 4 that are going to show up in your little camp scene on the login screen. The login screen is a login screen. Those might be your 4 chosen favorites, but everyone else is still available in the column at the right, but now without having to switch servers if you play on multiple realms. Okay, really, the only other news worth mentioning at this time really is the rest of the patch, like what is going to happen. As I said, the event itself kicks off on July 30th, but there are some things going into place on the 23rd. So let me just describe a few of those things briefly. Wowhead has a handy little chart that lists things that come with the pre-patch on July 23rd, and then things that later come in the War Within, which is end of August, either the 26th, or if you have early access, August 22nd. But sticking to the pre-patch, when you log into the game, and once your warbands with their shared bank and shared reputation and currency and all of that stuff, once that goes live, once you get into the game, you're going to see some other stuff as well. The new class talent tree updates are going to be in place. Not your hero talents, not the whole combination thing that's going to be coming. That will come with the War Within. But the new class talent trees are going to be, the updates are going to be there. So when you log in, especially if you're, actually just about anybody, you're going to see changed talents. You're going to need to get in there and make some adjustments. So that's always a pain in the butt. But hey, this is new expansion time. That's what we do. You're going to notice some new user interface updates and improvements. There are some new icons. There's some new kind of icons above quest givers' heads that's going to give you more detail about what's going on. The new things on the map are more informative. I think they took to heart the fact that past couple expansions, especially this one, that map is just loaded with stuff. So they're trying to differentiate things a little bit better, and I think there's a lot of good stuff in there. One of the big things that will be in place when you hop in, your flying mounts are going to be skywriting mounts. Skywriting, the new term for dragon flying or dragon riding or dynamic flying or all of these things, skywriting is the new term. And Wowhead in the same article lists 461 mounts will be available and 464 mounts will be available. Anyway, many, if not most, if not all flying mounts will have skywriting soon, that dynamic flying. So hop in there, check out what your mounts are doing, how they respond, how they react. If you're like me, and you still like to use what is now called steady flight, you can still do that until the War Within comes. But I'll get to that later. But first, yes, you can still use traditional flying, which is now going to be called steady flight. For me, old habits and the ability to just hover, those things are too strong. I actually don't mind steady flight. But for those of us who are slow flyers, traditional flying is getting a buff up to 420% speed. So that is nice. That's faster than what were we flying at? 310, 340. I don't even remember. They're all numbers. It's going to be a little bit faster. It's still not going to be as fast as skywriting. And that's okay, because if I want to pause, I don't have to land. I like hovering. I think it's a good thing. Couple other things. Cross-realm guilds become available with the patch. So Tuesday, you are going to be able to join cross-realm guilds. That's going to enable cross-realm mythic raiding when raiding comes back in Season 1 of the War Within. So come September, whenever that kicks off. So big changes there. Making things, boy, between warbands and cross-realm guilds and cross-realm raiding, they've really torn down a lot of barriers and a lot of things that people have complained about. Also on Tuesday, not that I care, and if you're like me, you may not care either, but all the Dragonflight raids and world bosses will become awakened, meaning they are all at that Season 4 difficulty with their appropriate rewards. So instead of just one of those 3 raids being awakened and one of the bosses being the one to get that week, all 3 of them will be open until the War Within kicks off. So for a few weeks, we're going to have all of those open. Still need those gear upgrades, or if you're still chasing down any of the cosmetics or anything, all 3 world bosses will be there, and all 3 raids are going to feature that Season 4 loot. I think the biggest thing to mention is this. There is a leveling boost coming. It is one of the more notable changes. If you are someone who says, hey, it's the end of an expansion, I gotta level some people and get ready, yeah, this is the thing that you want to listen to. So essentially, Blizzard has reduced the amount of experience points needed for each level. It's not a buff like, hey, 250%, or, like the traditional ones. They just literally have chopped down the levels. Taliesin reported on the weekly reset that it appears leveling from 10 to 50 has been reduced by roughly 20% of the experience required for each level. Then from 50 to 60, that number jumps to roughly 40%. So each of those levels has been shrunk down by 40%. And then from level 60 to 70, where I have a number of characters that are stuck, including an evoker who never even got above 60. Oops, sorry. That leveling from 60 to 70 has been trimmed by more than 70%. More than 70% per level. So the number of experience points you needed to go from 60 to 61 got trimmed by 70%. That's insane. This is a great opportunity to haul along those alts who got leveled up at the tail end of a previous expansion to get maxed out again quickly before you then ignore them for another 2 years. So yeah, if you've got those anything from 50 on up, you're going to see a big difference. Less so from 10 to 50. I mean, 20% is nice, don't get me wrong, but any leveling is going to feel fast. And that's if you're not doing it in Remix, of course. But hey, if you have a bunch of existing characters, like you said, left at 50 from maybe BFA or 60 from Shadowlands, they are just lingering. Well, you're going to have an easy path to get them up and over. So next few weeks, that is available to you. And I believe, how everything gets chopped down anyway. I don't know if this stays. I think this may be permanent, because you don't want 60 to 70 to be a slog to then get into the the current expansion, which is 70 to 80. So I believe this is Blizzard's way of kind of making 60 to 70 part of that initial leveling process. So I think this is going to be a change that either stays or is going to stay possibly at a slightly reduced number, but it's going to be easier from now on to go from start of Dragonflight to the end of Dragonflight, essentially. The last item I will mention in the news is the event itself. So on July 30th, because I won't have an episode before that, but on July 30th, you will have a chance to participate in the Radiant Echoes event, a massive public pre-expansion event That's going to give you a chance to do some leveling, run some characters through. It's going to have unique, appearances, weapons, armor, all that sort of stuff. There's also a few other collectibles as well. There is the Defender's Hefty Satchel, a 32-slot bag, and the Recruit's Reagent Bag, a 30-slot reagent bag. Both of them Warband, so Warband bound. Going to get used to these new terms. So you can earn those. You can earn those and then pass them on to other, if you've already got a 30-slot reagent bag, you can earn that and pass it to an alt. There is the Band of Radiant Echoes heirloom ring, so a new heirloom out there, and essentially it's going to work very similar to the last ring where you have to go around and get a couple different pieces, empower them, and boom, now you have a ring that does some stuff. There are 2 mounts, the Remembered Golden Griffin and the Remembered Wind Rider mounts. And what Blizz has done with these, and they look really cool, is they've taken that Azurite theming, that kind of bluish shimmering with the gold or yellow tinting, and they've made some mounts with them. So you're going to see a couple mounts that way. There are a couple pets as well, the Remembered Construct and the Remembered Riverpaw in that same sort of vein. And the event is going to be offering eye level 480 gear. And if you are you're familiar with the upgrade tracks and all of those, which I find very confusing, but I guess they're logical. I just find them confusing. But this is going to be veteran gear, 1 of 8. And ultimately, this is upgradable to eye level 502. That is going to get you ready for the War Within. That's going to get you in a good place. So obviously, you're going to see gear for your class, but with warbands, if you get stuff that's not your armor class, that's okay. You're going to be able to give it to your alts, and they're going to be able to wear that. So you can be very efficient in the War Within pre-patch, but obviously you may want to be taking people through what it is. There are 3 zones. Existing zones: Dragonflight up in Northrend, Searing Gorge, and Dust Wallow Marsh. And the zones are going to rotate in turn. The event, essentially, when it starts on July 30th, it will be permanently up, and it will rotate from one zone to another to another. In fact, they're going to go from Dust Wallow Marsh to Dragonflight to Searing Gorge, always in that order. And they're doing something interesting. In the first week of the event, the Radiant Echo zone is going to change every 90 minutes. So the action's going to go on, and then after 90 minutes, it'll switch to the next zone. From August 6th to August 12th, the second week, the zone will change every 60 minutes, so they're trimming the time down. And then from the 13th, 2 weeks, all the way to the 26th, the Radiant Echoes will change zones every 30 minutes. So as we get a little closer, they're going to come a little quicker. If you are behind, if you haven't gotten started, whatever it is, for 2 weeks, you're going to have every half hour, and that's not so bad. The gist of it is you're going to get in and you got stuff to do, a big boss to beat up and some treasure to get. And then once it's done, you are able to stay in the zone and keep killing, not rares, but keep killing mobs in the zone, and you're going to get a currency called Residual Memories. Residual Memories is the currency for everything in the event, and essentially the stuff that you want, the collectibles, are available on the vendor. So if you want to go ham on this and get everything, you just need to go and do it. You're not waiting on drop chances, drop rates. Don't have to down the RNG boss. Your fate is in your hands. Play enough to get the stuff you want. So I don't have any details on it, but essentially it sounds like you're going to get in. There's a couple stages of the event. Once your shard or your group or whatever, once the people in the zone clear the phases, The event's kind of done, but you, like I said, you can stay in the zone and keep killing things, and that will keep giving you currency, and then the zone will eventually change and you start the phases of the main event again. So if you miss it, that's okay. Linger around, kill some stuff, and then either 90, 60, or 30 minutes later, you're going to get a new zone anyway. And the big bosses are going to be they're called remembered bosses, and we've got the memories of Onyxia and the Fire Lord Ragnaros and the Lich King. So there you go, 3 big baddies from the past. They are going to be in rotation in those zones, and essentially once the boss is killed, that's it. He's not going to reappear until you swing back around, essentially three zones later. It sounds like they've incorporated a bunch of the successes of the past few expansions as far as the pre-expansion events, but also even some of the events going on in the game in Dragonflight. And hopefully these are fun enough, productive enough. You get in, you do your thing, get some characters leveled, get some transmogs, and before you know it, it will be the end of August, and we will have a whole ton of other stuff to do. That is the news from the Solo Q News Desk for the month of July. I will see you at the top of the hour with my thoughts on the Dragonflight expansion. It is midnight. It is the 12 o'clock hour. It's a change of day, so here we go. We're heading towards that dawn. And it's now time to talk a little bit about Dragonflight. One of the things that always comes up is the idea of an expansion, end of expansion checklist, things that you want to accomplish, things you want to knock out before everything rolls over. The pre-patch may start on Tuesday, but we're going to still be in a Dragonflight world for, at least another week before the event starts. So what's on your list? My list, I don't tend to make a big list. There are things I want to finish, but I don't really think ahead enough, frankly. So my list is kind of coming together as we chat here. One of the things people always talk about is going through their bags and selling and dumping and whatever, and I don't tend to do a lot of that at the end of the expansion. I think there's still things from Shadowlands, I think from Zereth Mortis still kicking around in my bag right now, frankly. But I was thinking, for this expansion, can I just wait a few more, days and dump everything into my warband bank? I imagine I'm going to have characters playing in Dragonflight at some point and doing, some of the professions and crafting, whether it's gear or mounts or something. So why would I sell that stuff off? Why would I throw it away? And now I'm going to have a massive bank for all of my alts to contribute to. So that seems like the logical thing and fits perfectly with me. I don't have to think about it until a couple days from now, and then I'll just still not think about it and really just dump everything into a giant new box of storage. I wish I had that in real life. I need a warband bank in real life. Oh, that. As I sit in the Solo Q headquarters, which might also be the basement of our house, where there's a lot of stuff. That warband bank is sounding pretty attractive. One of the things related to that I am doing is I haven't been throwing out soulbound, unwearable gear that I've been collecting. I've just been keeping it in my bags. I assume with the rollover that those will become sendable, but I could be wrong. And maybe the warbound gear doesn't start until the War Within starts. So I might be saving that stuff for nothing, in which case I'll just vendor it at some point. So that is not advice to you from me to you, because it could be completely wrong. But I don't know, on the off chance, let's put it this way. It's easier for me to keep stuff in my bags and not do the research than it is to, do the research and find the answer one way or the other. So yeah, that's that. Other things on my list as I think about them, I do want to finish follower dungeons. Oddly enough, I'm big fan of follower dungeons. I just have not had a chance to do all of them. I have I think 2 more. I did one earlier tonight. The Ruby Life Pools. I'm only getting to that now, so I have a couple more I want to do. Yeah, there's a few things that I want to finish. Boy, there's a lot of quest lines that I want to finish, and some of them are tied behind Renown. Well, I guess they aren't anymore, but they were for a long time. I know they've unlocked those things recently, but they were locked behind Renown for quite some time. And that gets me to, I guess one of the things I do want to talk about Dragonflight is the idea of Renown. It felt like a big burden. I don't know. I mean, anecdotally, I hear a lot of content creators, and that, that's maybe not the most broad example, but I do, read regular user accounts on Facebook and occasionally on Reddit sometimes, but a few other places. Anecdotally, the Renown system was kind of an upgrade in many people's opinions over Reputation, but hiding story behind it was a lot. And my experience fits in with that idea. I think I play this game at times more than some people. I think I play it less than a lot of people. I don't know. My time played is not as much as I would like. But I think not everyone gets to play maybe as much as I end up playing. I don't know. I guess it's hard to tell. But my point is this. For Renown, I only finished one Renown group, whatever you call it, Reputation. That was the Valdrakken Accord. I hit level 30 with Valdrakken Accord, maybe a couple months ago, 2 months ago. It wasn't that long ago. As far as the others, for the Iskara, I'm at 17. For Dragonscale Expedition, 15. The Maruk Centaurs, 14. The Loam Niffin, 12. I did not spend a lot of time in Zeralet Caverns. And I'm stuck on level 19 with the Dream Wardens. I'm about to finish. I just haven't pushed through. I stopped doing, the weekly Dream Surge, whatever stuff. I've sort of taken some time away from the weekly events to focus on Remix and other stuff. That one tops out at 20. The others are 30, so I'm really not close on most of them. Now, couple things here. Starting this podcast certainly did not help. This is month 9 or so of the podcast, and a lot of work goes into this, a lot of planning. Sometimes the ideas I have for the podcast then steer the play that I do. So I will accept that, I could have spent more time focused on story. I am someone who enjoys the story. I'm going to finish Dragonflight proper without having seen all the story. And, that's not to say that you should feel bad for me. But at the same time, I don't think the answer is, good. I don't think so. I just checked my time played a little earlier tonight, and I have 6 days of playing time at level 70. Now, I can take some blame for not focusing enough in the right directions here and there, but I think Blizzard needs to own that this system is a bit onerous. It is a lot. And last thing I want to say about Renown is this, and I genuinely am kind of asking and not complaining, because I don't understand. Why do some people think that reputation grinding is so bad, but Renown is a great advancement, improvement over Reputation? Am I crazy, or are they not the same thing? I understand Renown has like 20 levels or 30 levels, and they're in smaller bits. Like, was it 2,500 bits of renown. I want to call them reputation, but renown for a level. And while reputation is in ever increasing tiers, but only a few of them, 3, 4, whatever, friendly, honored, exalted, whatever, they kind of feel the same thing. Like, by the transitive property of math, those in the end are kind of the same thing. And yes, the renown system has more little rewards along the way, and that's great, but a grind is a grind. If you need me to get, 40,000, what's the old 42,000 rep would get you to exalted, if I remember right. 20 levels of 2,500, isn't that 40 something? 30 levels would be 60 something. Oh, so is the amount needed for renown levels even longer than a rep grind to exalted? I don't know. I haven't done the math. I have no expert witness testimony to give to you here, but the bottom line for me is this. I was not successful at grinding reputation in this expansion, and I'm going to have to go back into Dragonflight out of expansion and finish off those renown levels, and that bums me out. And I think there's something to look at there as we move into the War Within and what have you. I think there's more fine-tuning that can happen with reputation, renown, whatever you want to call it, however you want to package it. But that grind, I don't know. I understand the grind to get certain things, but to give me the story that seems, again, I understand the concept. You don't want people rushing through story. You want to dole it out. You want to pace it out, but making me, I don't know, as I say it, making me play the game seems mean. And that, of course, sounds stupid, but maybe you're making me play too much of the game because, again, 6 days played on my main at level 70, that's not an insignificant amount of time, and yet somehow I'm not close. I don't know. I could have more time played. I'm sure some of you do. I'm sure some of you have less time played. It is a matter of focus, but... All right, you're starting to see the effects of getting tired, I think, because I'm rambling a little bit. What is next in my notes? It is this. I don't want to do a whole review of Dragonflight. I know some podcasters and YouTubers and content people do that, and I think that's great. I don't play enough aspects of the game to have a good opinion, a worthwhile opinion on those aspects of the game. So I'm not going to bore you with some overarching grade dive deep into all the parts. I think Dragonflight was fantastic. I think it was what was needed at the time. And maybe I'll mention a little bit more of that in a later hours, content here tonight. But there was one thing that I heard on the podcast Azeroth United recently. Azeroth United put out by Denethor, and he said something very interesting. He said that he made the claim, not really a claim, I think it's just a fact, that Dragonflight has the least amount of raid bosses ever, and is also the shortest expansion in terms of the days that the expansion was live. And I poked around, and sure enough, his numbers were correct. Dragonflight had 26 bosses. Raid bosses, that is. Cataclysm had 27 bosses, and the next one was Warlords with 30. And the other part of that about the time was interesting. According to .esports, they did an article a couple of years ago. WoD, Warlords was live on servers for 656 days. Dragonflight is going to beat that by 23 days to become the shortest expansion at 633. A few months, under 2 years. And that was super interesting. So as Denethor was saying that, that got me thinking. Is Dragonflight kind of a parallel? Is it kind of in a similar situation to Warlords? Now, hear me out. I think Dragonflight is Warlords done well. Really, like, I'm not comparing the quality or the perceived quality from the community. We all know that Warlords has a terrible reputation. It's the worst time in the game. It's terrible, blah, blah, blah. We also know now that Team 2 gave up on Warlords at some point. Gave up on content. I believe they scrapped a raid tier. They, definitely changed directions, and they were looking ahead to Legion. We also know Legion was an epic expansion. It was fantastic, and it was a turning point for the game. It wasn't just really good, it was really good in kind of a new direction. We also know, though not everyone agrees, that WoD had some very solid content and some very good leveling experiences, but of course, overall, the expansion fell flat. There were patches that were big nothings. So, with a low bar for both raid bosses and time that the game was live, Dragonflight it's interesting. It's in that same category as Warlords. Dragonflight certainly has some shortcomings. There's some people that are not happy about the way the story came out, or even with some of the story, or some people whining about renown. Jeez. But it seems clear that, kind of like in 2015, the team is already looking ahead to another epic expansion, a new chapter in World of Warcraft. And I think there's something to this. I'm just glad that Dragonflight was, by almost any measure, a very good expansion. I've heard some people say, well, top 5 out of 9. Top 5 doesn't seem terribly gracious, but I'm not one to judge. I was not here for a bunch of those expansions, so I think the perception of Dragonflight is mixed between a medium expansion and a very good top 2, top 3. I think it's pretty good. I think there's a lot of good stuff in the game. I think, hey, when you're stumbling out of Shadowlands, by comparison, it probably looks a little bit better than it was, but ultimately, if I enjoyed it, I enjoyed it. If I thought it was good, then it is good. That's kind of how that works. So I think we can agree Dragonflight was a good expansion, if not very good. There was a lot of different things to do, and all that came out as the team was looking ahead very clearly to the war within, because not only did they come out in November and say, oh, it's November, it's time to tell you what the next expansion is. No, they came out and told us 3 expansions, and 4, 5, 6 years, however long that pans out, they have plans. That stuff is out there. So I don't know, I think they juggled it better. I think that's my point, that they juggled Dragonflight while looking ahead better than Warlords of Draenor into Legion. So, hey, I think that's an improvement there. I'm going to give some kudos for that. The last thing I'll mention for Dragonflight as a bit of a recap is the follower dungeons. And I know I've said it before on this show, but it is a fantastic addition. It offers benefits to solo players with no downside to other players. Nobody's hurt by the addition of solo dungeons, follower dungeons. In fact, I think it has benefits. So it's going to pull some players out of higher level dungeons who just do not belong there based on their skill, based on their abilities, even their desires, but they have to go do the thing. If they want to get the thing, the quest, the whatever it is, they're in there. If you pull those players out of higher level dungeons, that's going to give jerk faces less things to complain about. That's a plus. People can group up and go do follower dungeons, and in the War Within, in the next expansion, you're going to be able to do follower dungeons to count for weekly dungeon quests. So that's a benefit too. So you're pulling people out of content that they maybe don't belong in. And then I'm going to include myself in that. So I'm not throwing stones here. Another benefit for not just solo players, if you want to go practice new dungeon strats, if you want to try out a new role like healing or tanking, or if you just want to run dungeons playing a different class, this is a great practice area. Take 1, 2, or 3 of your friends with you, or don't take any. Captain Garrick is the most patient team leader ever. So yeah, get in there, practice what you want. That's a benefit. And I will beat this drum until the day we get it. Get us follower raids. All of the points I just mentioned above about A, not hurting any players, and B, actually benefiting not just solo players, but other types of group players, all of those points apply to follower raids. The fact that there are so many nightmare stories about LFR has to mean the LFR is just a crap show. And I know you can have good experiences, but dear God, the number of bad experiences we hear, what's the point? So again, if you can filter some of those lower capability players out of LFR into a follower raid where the difficulty is lower, benefits are lower, that's fine. The rewards are lower, that's fine. But the bar is less high, and therefore, again, jerk faces in LFR are going to have less to complain about other than maybe there's fewer people to pick on. But that we may get less nightmare stories, and maybe the entire world will finally be able to get along, all because I was right about follower raids. Blizzard, if you don't do it for me, do it for world peace and harmony for mankind. And then if you get credit for that, the Microsoft stock will go up and everyone will get rich and you'll get a raise and everyone will be happy. And you have me to thank. So, capitalism can do it. Good intentions. I don't care. Just let's get some follower raids. Okay. That's it for this hour. I am off for a few more follower dungeons to try and finish up a few things for quest lines. I will see you at the top of the next hour to talk about the War Within, as this night keeps rolling on. Oh yeah, more coffee. Woo. It is the 1 o'clock hour. 4 hours to go until sunrise. We've got this. We can do this. All right. This hour's topic is the War Within. And this is going to be kind of a light hour, I think, because, I don't have a lot to say. I think you're going to find War Within previews everywhere. And I'm not your person to beta test everything and tell you all the spoilers and give you everything. That's not the point of the podcast. There is one thing that caught my eye and my attention the other day, and that is the issue of flying. And I mentioned steady flying earlier in the show, and I also mentioned that I personally enjoy steady flying. Maybe it's because I've spent so much time in druid form where I push the button and I'm instantly flying. I don't mind static flying. I don't mind old school flying. I get to fly and stop. I get to, set the auto fly in a direction and then drink some coffee or do a thing. Or I can just stop and hover and I don't have to go anywhere. It's great. And for many expansions, of course, if you've been playing, Blizzard doesn't always dole out flying in the easiest of ways. Sometimes they even tried to not give out flying. We were talking about Warlords in the last hour and how Warlords did not have flying. They were not going to do flying. They didn't design it for flying. And then when everyone lost their gourds, had to go back and put a lot of work into making the world, making Draenor compatible with flying. And I'm sure that also took some time out of other things they may have had planned. But the point is, then they locked that ability to fly behind the Pathfinder. And the Pathfinder is, of course, many of you know, a series of achievements, of quests, of exploration, of doing a certain amount of the game before they let you get up into the air. So you're running around on the ground, you're doing quests, you're achieving things, you're getting to all the corners of the environment that they worked meticulously to create and render and get out there. They want you to see it and experience it before you hop on your flying mount and zoom all over the place. And that's all logical, I get that. But those were onerous. I hate to use the same big word twice in one episode, but Pathfinders, everyone agrees that they've been onerous. Draenor, I had good intentions of doing the Draenor Pathfinder, and I never did, because luckily they gave up. Eventually, we outweighted Blizzard, and they said, oh, you know what? Let's scrap that. Let's just give people flying. I forget what they had you do, but it was nothing compared to what it had been before. And so the War Within comes, and we're at a very interesting crossroads. Flying, of course, was upended in Dragonflight with dragon flying, now called skywriting. I wanted to say dynamic flying because that's what it was for like 3 weeks or something. But anyway, all right. Dragon flying has become skywriting, and the idea that you're hopping on a mount and you have actions, you have abilities, you can go super fast for a little bit, you have energy that you spend and then get back. All of that is literally dynamic. That's why I think dynamic flying worked pretty well. Many people, if asked, would probably say, ooh, that dynamic flying is certainly a premium. It's an upgrade. Now, again, personal choice can differ, but I think there's no doubt that the new shiny is going to be the upgrade over the older, slower thing that we've been doing since Burning Crusade. We've been doing for a long time now. And you might also think, especially if you heard that there was going to be another Pathfinder achievement planned for the War Within, you might think that the big new shiny, the premium, the upgrade, the first class flying is the thing that will be trapped behind the Pathfinder. And, oh, good, everyone will be able to fly, but if you want to fly fast and dynamically, then you have to do the Pathfinder. That would be logical. And incorrect. Because Blizzard, and I literally thought this was like typos or people were talking wrong, Blizzard has decided to continue that tradition of putting static flying, steady flight, whatever you want to call it, boring ass old flying behind the Pathfinder achievements. And when you start the War Within, you get to Dragonfly, dynamic fly, flying, whatever it's called, right from the start. Like, wait, what? Again, as somebody who likes and prefers for some things, not everything. I'm not saying I never get on a dragon mount, don't get me wrong. But as someone who appreciates the steady flying, I am slightly appalled that I'm not going to be able to do it at the start of the next expansion, while I essentially, even as a druid, will be forced to hop onto a dragon as if I have somehow forgotten the ability to flap wings. It's, obviously not everything fits story and it makes sense that way, so I'm nitpicking, but it does just seem strange. The bright shiny is the new thing, and like every other expansion, normal flying is trapped behind the Pathfinder. And I think that's a mistake. I really do. Maybe it's me being selfish and maybe I'm just ranting, but doesn't it also break sort of the laws of supply and demand? Like this is the upgrade. This is the rust proofing, the the support plan that you don't need from Target or whatever. Like no, this is the extra. So I don't know. I guess a lot of people should be happy. I think a lot of people like dragon riding. I guess one thing I would say, this does not apply to me, but anyone with accessibility issues, anyone who found dragon flying just not within their grasp, whether it's visually or whether it's dexterity, fingers and controls and things like that, I can see dragon flying. What is the flying that goes fast, the skyriding. Stop changing the names. The skywriting, I can see that being a challenge for certain players, and it is too bad that those players. I'm whining because I'm being a little selfish and maybe I'm a little tired, but those players are not going to have access to the flying that they can do. And yet they're going to be asked to do missions on their mounts that zoom around and have energy and are difficult to land sometimes. And yeah, so I found that a very strange thing. That's one of the few strange things I've found about the War Within. I am really excited to get into this. And in our next hour, we're going to talk about one of the things and preview one of the things that I am really excited about. But you're going to have to wait like 10 seconds to find out. Because I am going to head out into the beta, do a little testing, come back and report in 2 o'clock hour. Here we go. And we're back. It's already 2 o'clock. But I just spent some time testing delves. And boy, it's hard when you're not playing your own character. That beta testing is not super friendly. I spent a good amount of time in there creating a character, making sure it's in the right place. There's one server that is just for end game content. It is not for the world. So if you try and go somewhere, it doesn't work, and you got to find the right guy to get you to the delves. And so I hopped into one. I was like, oh, I'm not going to start with the first one. I'll start with the fourth one because whatever, everyone does the first one. And I died quickly. I started with the earth crawl mines, but it was hard. And again, I'm not playing my own character. I'm just playing some generic druid, feral druid, and I don't know the buttons. And I didn't take a lot of time to rearrange everything or look up talents. I just wanted to hop in and see what it was like. So definitely I was missing bits of the rotation and things weren't working quite the way they used to. I'll say that. So there'll be some learning when we do get into the game, but I did hop out and get back into the Fungal Folly, which is the first delve, and they do, in theory, they get harder as you go. As I recall, there are 12 different delves, and they can be played at different levels, and they are not exactly the same. It's kind of on the Torghast idea in that here is a wing, a thing, a theme, but it's not going to be the exact same mission every time. You're not replaying the exact same dungeon. There is going to be some variation in what's going on, some variation in the mission, in the goals. So they are replayable. I liked it. I liked it a lot. You hop in, you meet Bronzebeard at the entrance. You probably know by now that in the delves, you're going to have a follower with you, a seasonal follower. In the first season, it is Bran. He is going to follow you around. He's going to adjust his role to what your role is a little bit. I think in the beta testing, some people found that he was not super helpful, and there's been some tuning, which, that's all what beta is for. But the idea is that he's going to supplement you, whatever role you get in there to play. If you want to heal, he's going to do some damage, and you can do some healing and hopefully maybe a little damage. I don't know. If you're a tank, he's going to support that. So it's a flexible mode of the game. And Bran is there. I know some people are going to get really tired of his voice. Some people can't stand his chattiness. But he's, in there with some of his classic lines.
Inquiring minds just got to know.
Oh, there's one. But there are also many new voice lines for this new mode of the game. The Delves are a bit of a puzzle. It's like a series of quests, objectives, like one thing to this thing to that thing. As I talked about with Jin in the previous episode in the interview, Delves really are the culmination of a lot of the different instanced scenarios and activities that we've seen before, whether it's island expeditions or Torghast, the scenarios going all the way back to Mist that I'm experiencing for the first time right now, because I don't think are in game otherwise, but they're in Remix. So all of these things that they've been working on for small groups or non-dungeon groups, well, they're now fine-tuned down to one person. So you can do delves alone. You can also do delves with up to 4 other players. So if you and your dungeon team want to go do a change of pace, you can go do some delves. As has been widely reported, delves are going to replace PvP in the Great Vault. So as part of your weekly rotation of activities, you may do some raid stuff to get part of your Great Vault. You may do dungeons to unlock that slot. And the third slot is not going to be a different mode of the game. It's going to be more PvE group stuff, but delves you could do alone. So delves are going to be an option for you in the Great Vault. And frankly, as I've said, I'm excited because this will be literally the first time I ever open a Great Vault as soon as I get into a delve. So this is good. As you play through, there are, there's some loot, there's some gold. Bran likes to find some gold every now and then and throw it at you, which is kind of fun. Here's your share of the plunder, or whatever he says. Every now and then you get a Torghast-like power-up here and there. You kill something and the little kind of ball appears and you click that, pick that up, and it's a little, short-term buff to your powers. When you stretch yourself a bit far, when you take some damage at the end of the fight, Bran will suggest that you kind of pause, sit by the fire after some combat, get some healing, and clicking, he'll instantly build you a fire, and clicking on that fire will essentially start you eating. It will get you well fed. It will heal you up. So interesting mechanic, not just the in combat healing that, it's not just that role, but throw down a fire and essentially feed you up every now and then. Here and there are boxes and chests with some helpful gear. You can open up a respawn point. In the Fungal Folly, there was a respawn point roughly midway through, so that if you get there, once you die, you're not starting from the beginning, which is something I did many times in this first run through. And after you get through a series of little challenges or phases or little mini bosses, there's a boss at the end. After you get through the end, there's a treasure room full of rewards. And when you've done everything you need to do, there is the Levobot 7000 that is ready to pick you up and whisk you away when you're done in good gnomish engineering fashion. Or maybe it's goblin engineering, I don't know. Also, complete side note, Still so upset that I said that Kindy was a goblin, not a gnome. My gnome mage, named Kindy, is definitely a gnome. She's not a goblin. I resisted the urge to edit and re-record that to make myself not look like an idiot, but I did not do that, so there you go. If you didn't notice, then ignore everything I just said. It was perfect. If you did, well, there you go. Okay. As I said, as a solo player, delves are one of the pillars that the War Within is bringing to me, to you, to solo players. This is an opportunity to participate in meaningful end game content. It's going to get you weekly rewards, which is going to get you access to some of the better gear more quickly. And if you're I'm going to guess, if you're a solo player, that you enjoy content that is designed for you. And this is a series of puzzles. They will get harder as you go. And if you do all 12 of these delves on the hardest level, which is accomplishable by, a solo player, then you get access to a 13th delve that nobody knows about yet because they didn't test it, they didn't PTR it, so that's kind of a secret out there, which is exciting. So if you're a puzzly sort of person, this is it. And frankly, I think this is going to be something I'm going to really like, and I may struggle with it a bit, but it all comes back to this. I can struggle with it on my own. I don't have to be dragged by or drag others down, and that part that's the attractive part to me, and I think it may be for some of you as well. So looking forward to delves. Okay, we got a couple hours to go. We're almost there. Coming up on the 3 o'clock hour, we are going to get an update on Remix. We've got the raid of the month, and then I'm going to give you my final thoughts on Dragonflight. So, yeah, hang in there.
You seem tired.
Whatever, Mal'Ganis. Wait, why is Mal'Ganis talking to me in this dream? Whoa, why am I dreaming? Wait a minute. No. Okay. Yeah, so the mission kind of failed. I'm not gonna lie. I had really good intentions on Saturday night. We're up, we're doing it, and not to throw the dog under the bus, but the dog was not super excited that we were staying up all night. She did not go to bed. She was down here in the solo queue headquarters, just staring at me like, what are you doing? I want to go to bed. Why are you talking so much to that thing? And ultimately, I made the very responsible adult decision that I should go to bed and the dog should go to bed. And so we did on Saturday. Early Sunday morning, we threw in the towel. I gave in to my 50-ness, I guess, and we went to bed. Woke up in the morning, lots of things to do. One thing led to another. We did not sit back down to record the rest of the podcast until here's where maybe I'm not losing. Until Monday late night. And you know what time it is right now on the Eastern Seaboard? It is coming up on 3 a.m. The time in our episode. So, I'm back on track, and I'm legitimately tired, but you know what? Maybe we're not going to give in to 50 just yet. I'm going to stave that off as long as we can. So, At the 3 o'clock hour, I promised you an update on Remix, and this is going to be pretty brief. Played a lot of Remix. I got to the point where I could buy out the mount vendor, and that felt pretty good. Just click, 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 click. There were three of the I guess legacy mounts from the original mop that I did not have. I did get those. That was great. Those were both all three were 38,000 bronze. And then there were a whole slew of new mounts that Remix had added. So I've cleaned up all of those. And then I haven't been in Remix a lot since then. I do have 2 characters at 70. Is that a lie? That is a lie. I have 1 character at 70. I have another at 58. I did use the trick of saving up the experience points. I don't know if you've heard of that, but if you don't collect your experience point loot in dungeons, and maybe in raids, but I haven't gotten into any non-LFR raids. Anyway, if you don't collect those, you leave them in the dungeon, they'll get automatically sent to you in the mail. And the trick is you wait until your cloak has leveled up with the bonus experience rate, and your rate of experience is better, and then you just open them all in your mail. Well, I took a gamble. I didn't know how many I needed. I tried that, and it whooshed me up the levels to 58. So I have 12 levels to go, but that leveling change that I mentioned that happens later today, that applies to Remix as well. So 60 to 70 is going to go rather quickly in Remix. That's my plan. So I held off on that. So I'll save up enough bronze to buy a few more outfits, things like that. I don't know that I'm just going to buy everything. I've been playing mostly on my gnome hunter, and I gotta say, I thought, I'll try those tusks of Manaroth, and they looked pretty tame sitting on the shoulders of a gnome hunter. Frankly, they looked like glorified football pads, so I don't need to do that grind to get the tusks. I know they're pretty cool for some people, not my thing, so yeah. Originally, for this episode, part of the plan was maybe I will hop into Remix in my all night of playing WoW and recording this episode and see if I could bang out a character in a couple hours, as they say is possible. Yeah, we're throwing that out the window. It's not going to happen tonight. I will say that in Remix, I have been doing group content. I have been hopping into dungeons. I've done all the dungeons on normal. I've done all the dungeons on heroic, which you had to do if you wanted to get one of the ring slots or trinket slots. I forget which one. I have done all of the scenarios on heroic. I've done them all on normal as well, or I guess not all. To get the other ring trinket thing, you need to do certain scenarios on heroic. I have done all of those, so I've gotten those. The only bit of jewelry I did not get is the doing all the raids in normal or above. I did LFR raids for everything. I think I did half of them before I realized that was not the level they were looking for, but I did finish them. So I've done them, and here's why I can do the group content in Remix, because no one gives a crap about anything, and it's easy. Once you power up your character in Remix, there is 0 challenge, and, that's a little bit fun for a while. It's kind of like, clearing old farm content. There's at the level I'm at, I'm not upgrading gear. That seems like a waste of my bronze. You get into a dungeon, you do a thing, people are blowing stuff up, things die pretty easily. There's still a little bit of danger. There's still a little bit of paying attention to mechanics, at least at some of the levels I'm at. But for the most part, you just kind of run through the dungeons and blow stuff up. And like I said, it's fun to a point. And yeah, I don't mind being in a group because there's almost nothing bad to do. So I have been doing groups. I have been queuing for things. And frankly, it's almost like I'm running with AI because you don't talk to the other people. There's no time. You're in a dungeon like 2, 3, maybe 4 minutes, then you're done. The most miraculous thing happened to me the other day. I had no idea this was possible. It was very bizarre. For some of you, this may sound familiar, but I was in a dungeon. We get to the last boss, and immediately the invite box says, ooh, or the queue box, whatever it is, but essentially I'm already queued up for another dungeon. I'm like, I have no idea how that happened. I guess I just pushed the button and I'm in another dungeon, like immediately with the same group. And we ran that dungeon and the same thing happened again. And all of a sudden we hit, after we ran like 7 or 8 dungeons in a row, it was fantastic. It was very cool. Now, the whole thing took like 20 minutes. It did not take very long. And I gained a crap ton of levels. But it was just bizarre. That had never happened to me before. So it was very exciting. Cranked out a lot of stuff. I think it was a lot of fun to revisit Pandaria, to revisit Mr. Pandaria in the remix, to do some of the questing. I still have places I want to do. I still want to do Timeless Isle. I have not been to Throne of Thunder yet. The Thunder Island, I should say, or whatever it is. Isle of Thunder. There we go. I need to do those. There's a couple achievements I want to get. Bang out a few more things in remix, which I will probably do. It's been fun, but it'll be time to move on. So I hope they do have more of that content in the future, remix style. It'll be interesting to see what they do the next time and what direction they go in. I've heard suggestions from Legion, which is everybody's kind of favorite, to Draenor, because why not speed that up and kind of put the polish on it and show everybody the awesome bits of Draenor in a sped up version. I thought, there might be something to that. That might be pretty cool. And that's going to bring us to our penultimate segment, because one of the things I did was run through the Mogushan Vaults raid, and that gave me the inspiration for the 4 o'clock segment, the raid of the month. I will say that as we head into the raid of the month, one of the things that I loved about running Mogushan Terrace or Mogushan Vaults was trying to get the Astral Cloud Serpent. I always thought this mount was absolutely fascinating. It looks gorgeous, and it is a cloud serpent. Pandaria had many cloud serpents, many different flavors and types, and some of them were, vendors, and some of them were super rare. There was Hulan on the Timeless Isle. There, of course, is the Onyx one from the Shah of Anger. But my favorite was always the Astral Cloud Serpent, and it is like shimmery and light blue and see-through, and it has the stars from it. It comes from the raid boss Elegon. And Elegon is clearly a servant of the Mogu and kind of repurposing the Titan technology. And Elegon is just fascinating, see-through, starry, constellation-y thing, and the Cloud Serpent is amazing. And then when I got to Remix, there's a world event where the prize is the Astral Emperor's Serpent, and it is the same model Cloud Serpent as the Astral Cloud Serpent. It, instead of blue, it is bright, shiny gold. Still see-through, still has the stars in it, and it is phenomenal. It looks so cool. It's one of my favorite mounts in the game. And that got me thinking about running Mogushan Vaults because I really enjoyed it, and I thought, you know what? Let's run that right now. Why not? Raid of the month. I enjoyed having Lore Master Cho as a guide, running through the halls with us and kind of narrating what's going on. And I could see as a player who wants to just farm these things really quickly, and it's not quite as easy to farm with him yakking at you the whole time, but you still can.
The ancient vaults of the Mogu, untouched by
Running
time,
through the first area right now, there are stone quillin. They are basically like statues of lions everywhere running around. And essentially I'm activating the entire room.
have your wits about
And I'm gonna burn them down here with one spell. Oops. I think they made me petrified. I didn't actually realize that could happen. I thought, I'm gonna pull the whole room and see what happens. That'll be kind of fun. And then in doing so and waiting for everything, they got their spell off. And so, there we go. This time I'll get him. So this first room, yeah, just has a lot of these statues. And those are the bosses. 4 bosses. Lore Master Cho. A little scared all the time. Likes to hide in the shadows once things get tough. Yeah, as content farmers, as old raid farmers, you don't want to have to sit and wait, but the next 2 guys, you have to wait for them to activate, and then you head into around the corner to the next room. You have to wait for these guys to activate. The Dais of Conquerors. There's 5 more Mogu with a ball of energy kind of weaving through them.
seems to have activated with the demise
And when you get close to them, they activate.
within.
1 spell. Now we are on to Feng the Accursed, the second boss. I am a level 70. I grabbed my Fire Mage that leveled up through the Midsummer Fire Festival. So he's actually not that powerful because he leveled up. He didn't get a lot of gear from doing that. So he is a very underpowered level 70. Let's see. He is high level, well, he's 331. So he did get some gear in the mail from some of my alts, some of my mains. So yeah, 331, not bad. Plenty strong to run through this raid where the trash is at level 37, 37 plus. I know there are tricks to doing old content faster. I'm not usually interested in doing that too much. I mean, I like to be efficient, but I don't like to go crazy about it. So we'll run down to this door and kill all this trash while we wait for this boss to show up, because he's another one of them that takes forever to get into place.
They must seek the legendary
Garajal, the Spirit Binder. And down, and he was alive for 0 seconds, says DBM.
I will stay behind and investigate this dais further.
When your voiceover lines are infinitely longer than your time in the raid encounter. That's the spirit of farming. Now we head inside and we're into the repository, and this is where Lore Walker Cho is going to introduce us to a bunch of old memories in the archives that he finds. But I gotta click on him and ask him, hey, what are you waiting for? Let's go investigate. Guess that's a good pause point if you are, a full raid group and you need to wait for people. So Cho's going to open up these vaults and pull up 4 sets of memories. Essentially, you just have to run around and kill all 4 sets. A lot more chatting than killing.
Watch your step.
So, yeah, it's been a while since I've done this raid, but it definitely is slower than one would probably like. I'll admit that. Now we get up to this heresy area where we've got 4 bosses. It's kind of a weird 4 bosses in a row. Kill one, the next one activates.
Passage has opened beneath the platform. This way.
It's the 4 emperors that we mentioned below. Subutai the Swift, Xeon of the Endless Shadow, Meng the Demented, and the other one, I missed his name. Did I miss his name? Where is he?
Pandaria welcomes you.
Oh yeah, Yang the Merciless.
These dark halls have not seen footfalls for many centuries.
Down this way, down towards Elegon, who's not the final boss, but he is the boss with the best, with the good mount. Okay, it's a lot of guards in front of Elegon. We gotta kill all of them. Not hard. And here comes more Walker Cho. Oh, gotta kill the guy first. There we go. Here comes Cho running down the hall. Yes. We're in a big Titan facility. So the big hole in the ground, all of a sudden there's a floor.
Target you.
And as soon as you run onto that floor, this glass floor, you change forms into your essentially astral form as well. It's like a skeleton, but instead of bones, you kind of have stars. Kind of crawl back through the hall. Huh. Raid achievement there that I didn't know of before. I don't pay a lot of attention to raid achievements. But here we are in the final room, the final boss. 3 pipes on the side, on each side. I don't know if it makes it harder. I forget. I'm gonna do it. I think it does.
Target you.
Ancient Mogu pipe. Okay. There we go. Oh, do I have some power? What's going on? Okay, so in this fight, Forge of the Endless, you have
Target you.
it's the
Target you.
Will of the Emperor, and it's just a whole series of dudes that come down and fight you. And again, as a farmer of stuff, slow AF, but is what it is. I don't think there's really anything on this boss that we would want anyway for loot. Let's see. Yeah, I have everything. So the space is very cool. It is arched kind of spaces in the walls where all of these protectors, soldiers, bosses, things to fight, just waiting for you. And there we go. We've killed everybody. I think instead of walking back, we're gonna say hi to Cho. And then we get out of here. So that's Mogushan Vaults. Not super quick, but still really has one of the coolest mounts in the game. If you love the Cloud Serpents, I think it's worth parking a character or two there and heading in there every now and then. Try and find somebody fast. That way you can kind of make the best of running through there. That's why I always love playing with druids. That is going to get us to our number 5. Oof. We have arrived at the hour of 5. The sun is working its way towards the horizon. Not quite up yet, but close. It's time for my final thoughts on Dragonflight. I guess we're wrapping up an expansion. I think Dragonflight saved World of Warcraft. And I don't know that that's hyperbole. I actually think that that's kind of on the money. Dragonflight saved WoW as Blizzard was pulling itself out of a terrible place. I know that video games are companies. They're companies. A lot of times they have shareholders and stocks, and any business, no matter what you're making, what you're selling, any business is in the business of making money. And it's always going to be about money, and it's always going to be businesses will always be run by imperfect humans, because we are imperfect beings. But in summer of 2021, all of that was just absolutely at a height, and I don't think I was the only one debating whether or not I wanted to give any money to Blizzard again. That was the summer that the sexual harassment cases were filed and all the news started coming public about all of the horrible treatment, often of female employees. J. Allen Brack was out as president. Mike Ybarra and Jen O'Neill were in. Jen O'Neill, of course, left 3 months later due to awful treatment as a woman, even as the co-leader of Blizzard. Fascinating. It really... Mike Ybarra, of course, did not go on to paint himself in glory either, especially once he left the company just recently. And of course, Shadowlands was dominated by widespread criticism that overshadowed the good aspects of an expansion that frankly had many people wondering if WoW itself had just gone into its own Shadowlands. In the spring of 2022, I created this podcast. I had the idea, I did research, I dove way in, and ultimately I shelved it because of my own uncertainties with the game and really with the company. I just was so unsure. In November of 23, a year and a half later, I was still mulling what I wanted to do with the game as far as playing. The podcast was on, that didn't exist. I had put it away. I was still not sure if I wanted to keep playing this game. And then BlizzCon came around. And I couldn't not watch an expansion announcement. I mean, I was excited to hear what was next, but I was not super excited with the game. And on my couch that night, I remember hearing words like delves, warbands, follower dungeons, and in an instant, like Marty McFly wasting away on stage at the Enchantment Under the Sea when his parents finally kissed, I was back. Bolt upright, ready for action. I would keep playing the game, and solo queue was more than ever a viable idea. Blizzard was finally paying lip service to solo players. Dragonflight brought the story of WoW back to Azeroth, back to the world we know, albeit on some previously undiscovered islands, of course. There was a theme in this game of previously undiscovered islands in the ocean. Dragonflight brought the game back to the familiar, and I think that for many players, Shadowlands feels like a weekend of bad decisions. But life is back on track again. We will see if players will continue to feel that vibe as we delve deep into Azeroth and begin to face some of the big cosmic forces that are making a play for our beloved planet and world soul. In Dragonflight, that lip service to solo players was finally borne out. Follower dungeons might be one of the few features launched in WoW to have no real negative reaction. They are for a specific purpose, a specific type of player, and they do not take anything away from anyone else. This is monumental. Let me read you this comment from a user on Wowhead, Dr. Chaz 101. He posted this in January. As perhaps the worst player in WoW, I'm 71 years old and play with only a mouse, the spacebar, and the tab button. My reaction time is glacial, and I sometimes stand in fire. That's the greatest parenthetical ever. I love it. I don't bother to random dungeons just to save everyone the hassle of kicking me out of their groups. And I don't blame them. If they could, these NPCs would probably boot me. Instead, they go really slow, just like me. They all do focused damage while I just randomly shoot at whatever, and the healer keeps me alive. This is sliced bread right here. Thanks, Blizzard. Dr. Chaz is my people. I've never had so much in common with a 71-year-old man, though I seem to be getting a little closer every day. But in my defense, I do push keys on my keyboard, but I am with you, Dr. Chaz. No one needs to wait. No kick votes. It took one normal dungeon in Legion. Not too long after I started playing, and that was my first full expansion. But it took one normal dungeon in Legion for someone to call me a retard, and I was done. Call me soft-skinned, and that I should toughen up, and that's what MMOs are. I say that I am soft-skinned. Strangely, I don't like being called a retard, mostly because of how offensive it is to others, but also it just doesn't feel nice to be told that you are trash. I'm sorry about the triggering word, but it really was sharp. Like, even in text, that word really hurt. And maybe it's because I'm a teacher, and maybe it's because that word is just not used anymore and is horrible. But that was a moment, and I stopped even trying to get into dungeons basically at that time. And no, coincidentally, I do not choose to teach my high school history classes that way. Being told, when students don't know something, I refrain from insulting them and telling them to toughen up. I teach them. Well, in the MMO world, I don't feel like waiting for the nice people to find me among the 5 million subscribers. Follower dungeons allow me to play the game and continue to avoid that jock locker room insult culture that I've been avoiding all of my life. I can play the mode, and other players who do embrace the social aspects of the game remain unaffected. That is exactly the path I hope Blizzard continues on with regards to solo players, and those who, for various reasons, do not queue up for group content. Continue to give us ways to play the game, to access the features, and to experience all of the story without taking away from the bigger picture. I do realize this is an MMO after all. That said, I want to experience full follower raids, not just a cheesed down version of the end boss. Extend that follower dungeon tech to a raid setting. In some ways, Blizz have exceeded that expectation of solo content that doesn't impact others. If delves do turn out to be a viable way for all players to play the game, then solo players will have a feature that everyone wants. In that way, they may be similar to the Mage Tower challenges, but not in an all or nothing sort of way. In the Mage Tower, you either achieved it or you didn't. My single proudest moment in this game was beating the Feral Druid challenge and gaining the very cool cat form that my main still rocks to this day. Without dungeon and raid experience behind me, the Mage Tower was a massive challenge. Wipe after wipe after wipe. Frustration, more attempts, frustration, some research, more practice, a better game plan, more attempts. Mere hours before it went away forever, I managed to kill Agatha, and I was literally jumping for joy. All that work might sound familiar to raid members and keystone runners and even LFG players, but I was solo. No one had to rely on me, wait for me, or carry me. It is really how I do things in my own life. It is really only occurring to me now why that was the high point in my WoW career. It was a solo challenge. And it was the first opportunity that I had as a WoW player who only entered Azeroth in 2014, 2015, the year before the Legion invasion began, to tackle meaningful endgame content by myself. That was fun. I see why people enjoy solving the puzzles of dungeons and raids and mythic keystones. I see it. I just don't want to do those things with others. Don't get me wrong, I like sprinting through Ice Crown Citadel and climbing to the top of the tower and not getting a certain horse and get back to my life as soon as possible. But sometimes, when I'm farming old content, like Mogushan Palace, I would like there to be a slight challenge. A middle ground between I am max level and the mobs and bosses are a gray level 30, and getting viciously beaten by the first thing I see in an instance and running back to the entrance. But before that, follower raids. Do that first, Blizz. Stay focused. Lastly, the big change. Warbands. I heard it said by Denethor on Azeroth United that this is the shift from a game that recognizes what the character accomplishes to a game that recognizes what the player accomplishes. That's spot on. It's a natural evolution. In some ways, I have a tiny regret. I like that my 61 characters stand on their own and that they are disparate parts of a big team. That is how it works in my head. But this is better. Blizzard is better acknowledging the time that I, as a human being with a job and a family and responsibilities and a dog that wants to go to bed, that I put into the game, regardless of which of the 61 characters I am puppeteering at the moment. In some ways, warbands reduce the minimum number of characters that you would need to 4, one for each armor class. Not that you can't grab gear for other armor classes, but someone has to be able to wear the transmog you're collecting. So you could actually pare it down to 4 if you really wanted to. Taking out interest in specific classes or races, 4 characters will now get you everything. It is better. It does not diminish my stable of alts. I could understand how some people might be upset about that, or the changes to the holiday rules and not really needing that massive stable of alts. Ultimately, now I have 61 characters that share, and I can just play whomever I like. So I guess there is still a role-playing aspect to this game if you want there to be. I think Dragonflight was super important. It may not be the best of all of the expansions, but it is the one that bridged us back to the War Within, which I think is going to be, despite the fact that we are facing all those cosmic forces, I think this is going to get back to some great RPG storytelling and get us back to the world we're familiar with. The Shadowlands seem a distant memory now, and with 3 expansions ahead of us, it feels like the future for WoW is pretty bright. Well, it looks like our time in the solo queue is finally up. I know this is a long episode and I apologize, but I think we may have a lot of maintenance today. Frankly, I need to get out of Azeroth and get into my bed because the sun is coming up here on the eastern seaboard, and yeah, Dragonflight's gonna close in just a couple hours, essentially. It's time for me to hearth back to my bed. Remember that all the music you hear is And sounds, everything I'm jamming in there is all by the amazing people at Blizzard. Hashtag don't play muted. Come on. The music taking us out, of course, is my real friends in the band Ogre, who I miss. I haven't seen them in a little while. Summer vacation and all, so check them out. I want to thank everyone who made this episode possible. Thank my wife for leaving for the weekend. Thank my dog for putting up with me. And thanking the good folks over at Podbean for hosting Solo Q. If you'd like to support the show even in a small way, you can find us on patreon.com/SoloQWow, SoloQueueWow. Thank you to my current patrons, Andrew, Righteous Bandy, and That Sky Guy. And welcome to 2 free patrons, Max and Eddie. Thank you for your support as well. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify. If you want to leave a 5-star review on either platform of those big platforms, or just like it on whatever your platform of choice is, that helps. I noticed there's a few more 5-star reviews, 5-star rankings, ratings, 5-star ratings on Apple. Still looking for those reviews. If you want to take a moment to blast something into Apple's platform or Spotify, that'd be fantastic. If I find them, I will read them on the show. You can contact me at soloqwow@gmail.com. Questions, feedback, stories, anything you want. I had a fantastic email the other day about someone appreciating the show, so it means a lot to send that in. It really keeps me going, keeps me staying up all night and getting the show out to you guys. And if you want to find me on the social medias, same thing, SoloQWow, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads. Hey, good luck getting back into the game a little later today. Good luck to all of us. Hopefully everything runs smoothly. Hopefully your warband shows up for work. Hopefully you don't spend too long trying to figure out which of your characters, which 4 get into the screen. I am going to... I don't know who my 4 are. That's going to be interesting. But you know what? We can talk about it when we come back in August. The next time we hop into the solo queue. See you out there. It's going to be a long night.